Greetings, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Black Mental Health Matters. And this edition is coming to you this month of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. And as well, it's also the Africa Unity Week. And we know that Africa Liberation Day is coming up on Monday, and there is a relationship between healing and liberation. And today we have two amazing guests with us, and I'll beg you to please introduce yourselves to the audience.
Yeah, great.
Dr. Elizabeth?
My name is Dr. Elizabeth Samanda. I'm a holistic psychiatrist, life coach. I host the Stepping into Soul Power podcast. I am happy to be here.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Naomi, and I run a holistic creative consultancy where the premise is in order to change the world, you have to first heal yourself. I also have a lot of lived experience of navigating mental health issues. So I'm very happy to be here, and it's nice to be in a Black female lineup.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. So I would like to start by saying many communities today are carrying a lot of weight. There's so much grief, there's displacement, racism, violence, exhaustion, loneliness. You can really just name it. And then we come to things like migration stress, intergenerational pain, uncertainty. And despite all of these things, our people continue to survive. And sometimes survival itself becomes so normalized that we stop asking what it is doing to our minds. What is it doing to our bodies? What is this surviving doing to our relationships and the community? And we speak seldom about trauma. And when we do speak of it, we speak of it as if it's an individual issue. But many of the wounds communities are carrying are actually structural. You know, people are traumatized not only by single events, but by systems, poverty, war, all these things. And as someone rooted in psychosocial work and Africa centered practices, I would really want us to remember that many African societies traditionally understood well being as a collective thing.
Yeah.
So healing is not only about the individual, it involves relationship, memory, spirituality, and all these things. So I would start by asking both of you, what does trauma healing in community, what does it mean?
So I really loved how you brought up Afrocentric and Indigenous definitions of wellness. I'm currently reading this book, The Healing Wisdom of Africa, which talks about
Oh, I
everything
have
you
it.
just said. Oh, you have it?
Yeah, it's on my shelf. I was like, whoa.
See, this is very
Malidoma Somé.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes. The late, yeah.
Yes.
The late.
Yeah.
Well,
honor to the ancestor.
So both of you know the powerful message, but for those who haven't read the book, talks about how healing has to be in community, that it's actually a Western phenomenon to heal in isolation. So when I think about healing in community, I think about the lost relationship that we have with each other as people, and the lost relationship we have with nature, because that's also a theme that comes up in the book, the healing power of being connected to nature. So that's what comes up initially when I think about that question. I don't know what you think, Dr. Elizabeth.
Yeah. I think that there are we experience lots of different types of trauma. You know, our own individual trauma, there's ancestral trauma, historical trauma, organizational trauma. There are collective things that happen to all of us. Like we all went through COVID and or
Mhm.
World War One, World War Two, and you know, our body remembers that. Our body carries that, and um, you know, I agree that it is a Western phenomenon that we go to therapy and go to psychiatry or a psychiatrist, right? But I don't think that's the only thing that we can do, should do, and that there needs to be more collective healing modalities where we come together as a community. There's some
Right.
um, yeah, there's some things that we have established, like, you know, you can go to there are healing circles within churches and but I
Mhm.
think we need to go beyond that for people who aren't necessarily associated with a particular religious institution, having different um, ways of coming together, bearing witness to what has happened, speaking the
Mhm.
truth about what happened, and then allowing people to um, say what they need to say in a safe space
Mhm.
and come up with a process for moving forward. Um, yeah, but yeah, lots of levels, lots of different types of
Mm.
ways that we can heal together. What I picture in my mind.
I just
Okay,
want
thank
to
you
add.
so much.
Oh, sorry,
I
did
would
you want
like
to?
to acknowledge
Oh,
that
sorry.
we have our guest here, Isha Roy, and I would like
Yeah,
to welcome you.
thank you. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. We just went through the introductions, and you're right on time to introduce yourself.
Yeah, okay. Hello, I'm Isha. I am doing Masters in Clinical Psychology. And about this webinar, I was really interested to know about things because I am working on nature-based approaches to actually, integrated therapies help people heal without medication, with
Mhm.
natural remedies, and each and every individual mind and body connection and the universe connection does have the potential to actually do it by themselves, but we just need to make them have that feeling that yes, you can do it. And because just because surrounding actually influences our mind, our body, and everything, our career, our life, everything. So it is very important. The first step of healing or anything is motivation, I feel, because a lot of people have a lot of circumstances in their life and their past experiences for which they actually need it importantly. So yeah, I'm working on that. I just want to help people so that they can actually know their own potential.
Okay, thank you. And maybe you can just let me know what kinds of trauma our communities carrying right now.
It is depending on the communities, exactly, because each
Yeah.
community works with their own priorities and needs. So I won't be able to say exactly what trauma, but mostly people might have the judgmental trauma where people do get judged. And there are a lot of people in our life where they advise us, but the advice does not come from a professional,
Mhm.
and a professional gives advice with their knowledge, book knowledge, theory knowledge, education, everything. And they study about mind, they study about body, they study about connections, and then we can actually deal with things. So according to me, I think trauma healing, everything cannot be generalized. Rather than that, we can have individual ways to actually do with individual people.
Okay. Does somebody want to say something to that?
I agree that it's always necessary to take an intersectional approach.
Mhm.
Um, the last discussion that was on this platform was focused on Black men. That was a great discussion that I was a part of, and it highlighted that there needs to be different approaches to wellness and how we think and conceptualize trauma based on these different characteristics, whether that's by race or by gender. So I think I can only obviously speak from my lived experience, and something that Dr. Elizabeth mentioned when he spoke about COVID, it brought up how there is this lack of connection, and I think that has created a trauma in itself, how
Yes.
a lot of us in our busy 9 to 5s, we're not actually taking time to meet with people in person. Everything is on a screen, and studies have shown how being on a screen, being on social media, how that affects mental health, how that we don't actually know what traumas we are creating. It will be in maybe 50 to 100 years time where we notice or begin to understand what is the trauma, what traumas have been created by us just being 9, 10, 11, 12 hours just on a screen looking at other people's lives that are not even real.
Yeah, I think that you bring up a really important point. We're meant to be out with other people, connected with other people. We're meant to be out in nature and connecting with nature. And we're also meant to have a relationship with the land, with where we live. Because everything, in my opinion, everything has energy. The land remembers. The land remembers the organizations, the wars that were fought on it, and you can, or the things that were done prior to, and you can intuitively, you know this, because when you go into a space where there's been like really some parts of Europe where there were Holocaust survivors, or when you go into a church, you can feel the energy of like, oh, something happened here, whether it was good or whether it was bad. And so, in my opinion, connection is a basic need. We need to connect. We need to connect with others. We need to connect with our environment, and we need to connect with ourselves too.
100%.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's like in
Definitely.
life, we need to maintain 5 things, the 5 hierarchies of life, self-actualization, self-esteem, love and belongingness, security and safety, and physiological needs. So when people understand these 5 things in a part and they maintain these 5 things in different aspects, because normally what people do is they mix up everything.
Yes.
Now, I can't punch somebody with 1 finger. I need to have the whole bunch of 5 fingers, and then my punch can be powerful. So that healing process needs to be that powerful to actually understand. First, we need to know about ourselves, who we are, what we are doing, because mostly teenagers, people nowadays in this generation, they are so much into social connection, into social media, that they don't know either they are getting the positive things or the negative, but they are just influenced with whatever they are showing, because AI generated videos, etc., like they'll have, even we have people, those who try to be the mental health educators or aspirants, but without education. And in every field, education is really important, because studying and actually guiding somebody needs the basic things about knowing a brain, a simple thing, a brain anatomy. If I ask about a brain anatomy to everybody, mostly citizens won't be able to answer it. But when a specialist is there, when I'll ask somebody, they know which hormone is getting released, which way, with what are connection within their experiences, their future, everything. So a professional connection is basic need Nowadays, in this generation, people just feel like ChatGPT or using or talking to a friend is important, and it is
Mhm.
better to rather go than a stranger or a therapist to just talk to your friend. But the basic simple thing is to understand that education is really important to actually guide you, because it's your life, anybody's. Even if a
Mhm.
professional is there sitting in their chamber, they too have their personal life, and they too need a space where they will put their head on. So that basic hierarchies of life are very important to maintain for every individual, and that is why it is important to actually be knowing about yourself. And even spending time in nature, it really helps us emotionally regulate our mind, release
Mhm.
hormones naturally, and critically think. Mostly since childhood I have been doing this, and that is the reason I want to do this in my future as well, to actually introduce this in a very broad area, because I believe
Mhm.
every mind has the potential to do it.
I agree with education, and I
Mhm.
really love that you brought up that the emphasis. I think as somebody who worked in an academic library for over 6 years, we have to
Mhm.
also take into account that a lot of the education, especially in Western circles, Western modes of education, don't take into account certain indigenous knowledge and certain
Yeah.
indigenous beliefs about wellness. Because when you were talking about the land remembers, Dr. Elizabeth, I was thinking about how I'm in London right now, which is the heart of empire.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
carries the legacy of trauma for
Yeah.
somebody
Mhm.
who, the reason why I was born in the UK, if you look into my family history, it goes back to enslavement.
Right.
And that's why when we were talking candidly off camera, I said how I would like to move to the Caribbean and islands on the
Mhm.
Caribbean, because when I'm there, is a whole different experience for my mental health and wellness. I'm connected to nature, first of all. I'm going to the beach
Mhm.
every day, I'm in the ocean every day, but there's something about memory and
Yeah.
land, and that's not something that I believe that Western epistemology understands. Like, they're very much related to the rational and the logics of the mind, whereas when you look into indigenous wellness, it's more into the holistic, the spiritual, the metaphysical understandings. So I just wanted to raise that point, because education is important, but we have to remember that a lot of the education we're receiving is colonial
Mhm.
education.
Yeah. And,
Mhm.
and that's why that there's a you're both right. Education is important. And there's so many different types of education, and being very clear about
Mhm.
the sources of education and the intentions behind, why it was put out, what's put out. And then this also speaks to our that we as a people, we have to take ownership of our lives and our education, and go out there, and develop it. And then also, we've got to have discernment. I think, Isha, you were bringing up a really good point about social media and AI, and
Exactly.
I'm a big believer that we have to do our best to develop our intuitive skills, so that we can discern, hey, is this real? Is this real for
Mhm.
me, or is this not?
Exactly.
We have to really work on being connected to our bodies and listen to our bodies, because our bodies are always talking to us, and it's got important information.
Exactly. Exactly. And everyone's body responds in a individual way. It's not always the same. And that was very, very, very important. We also forget that according to Western medicine, they sometimes talk a few senses, but there's so much more. So what you're saying about discernment and developing that intuition and
Mhm.
senses which we have lost, regaining them is also part of the story which needs to be told and researched as well. It's very interesting.
Absolutely.
You mentioned already living in a place like the UK with all the colonial and history. How exactly would you say racism and such structural um, violence, colonial continuities, what impact do they have on the mental health?
Well, Isha again raised a great point about social media. And so when
Mhm,
I think about living in London, I think about the hyper-surveillance that is targeted predominantly at those who
mhm,
come from minoritized backgrounds. So,
mhm,
um, I could walk down the street and potentially face more harassment. I say potentially, just because where I live in London, it is very multicultural, but there are parts of the UK that are
mhm,
definitely very racist, and parts of London that are very racist. But being targeted just because of being black, whether that's on the street by the police, harassment, or in a shop,
mhm,
you are constantly reminded that you don't belong. And there's obviously been
mhm,
so many studies. This is not a new conversation. I'm automatically thinking about Frantz Fanon and his book Black Skins White Mask. And
mhm,
that was also coming from a very analytical perspective of what happens when you are a racialized person living in Europe. So I believe Frantz Fanon, for those who don't know, he was from Martinique and he lived in France, and he was highlighting the psychological effect of living in a colonized country when your ancestry helped to
mhm,
build that country, but is also subjugated by that country. So I think it creates a lot of physical tension, which obviously then plays into mental tension. And I would say as well, spiritual tension when you're not
mhm,
living in accordance with your natural rhythms, or you're living in disalignment because you're in the habits and the lifestyle and the way of thinking of the colonizer that
mhm,
was their mode of beings, their mode of knowledge was never for you. In fact, it was
mhm,
there to, I would argue, to destroy you, to destroy your relationship with your intuition, with your higher self. My
mhm,
granddad is Yoruba, and I've done a lot of study into the different Yoruba cosmologies, and the ancient Yoruba religions understand that you have an Ori, you have this higher self that is there to
yeah.
guide you, that you're not actually meant to be guessing what is my purpose, what is my destiny. You are guided. And if you were following the
Connected.
Yoruba religions from a child, you would have been initiated by elders. You're not here to be guessing what life is. You would have been shown and revealed it. So I think, that plays a role. There are so many people who feel lost in life. They're disconnected from their purpose. Like Isha was saying, they're being guided by AI and social media. So of course, I would argue their mental health is poor because
Mm,
they're lost and they're seeking guidance from people who are also lost, or who are intentionally misleading them into further disarray, so to speak.
Yeah, there's been a lot of, when I think about racism, I think about it as there's a lot of negative programming, and it really influences the inner dialogue that people have about themselves. And underlying all of it is this sense of I am not worthy. And so part of the task that we're given is being able to change that dialogue for ourselves, that we are worthy. Um, because someone can think something about us, but unless we believe it, in even a small part of it, if we believe a small part of it, then we're going to take it as true. And I think a lot of us, unfortunately, believe that we're not worthy. And so this plays out a lot in the relationships that we have with other people and how we interact with institutions. And so there is a need
Mhm.
now to we gotta like erase all of that and reprogram ourselves in a
Mhm.
way that is in alignment with our spirit. And I loved what you said, Naomi, about this connection, like that we are always guided. We are.
Mhm.
We are
Mhm.
always being guided. It's just there is so much noise out there. And we've got this is about detoxing from sources that are not really looking to assist us in our evolution.
Mhm.
And you know, we've got to say no to some of the influences, or limit our contact with
Mhm.
some of the sources of media that are not nourishing our spirits. And we've got to be very mindful about the people that we hang out with, because the people that you hang out with will influence your habits and your thoughts. Um and so this is really, I mean, it's really important for all of us to uh, take our power back and remember who we are, and
Yeah.
remember
Know
that we are
thyself.
in essence like all connected.
Mhm.
um we are connected to something greater, and allowing that wisdom to come through us.
Great, great. So trauma
Yeah,
doesn't, yeah. You want to say something, Isha?
yeah, I would definitely. I really liked one thing that Naomi said about the belongingness, which is really important to be living in a place where you feel belonged, that yes, I am from here. And then also the other part, Elizabeth mentioned that, remembering who we are, where are we, and
Mhm.
everything. Racism, in a way, it affects every part of the human's body.
Mhm.
It's about the biological parts, about the psychological parts, mental well-being, and
Mhm.
everything, and even their everything, because one human body is connected with the mind and the whole body organs, because our neck represents that thing. Our neck does the, we know about the fight and flight responses,
Mhm.
where we actually, when we get pinched or something, first our brain sends the message to our body and then we realize it. So when racism comes or anything other than that, anything, any trauma a person is getting from external factors, that does affect
Mhm.
their own life, external and internal factors in a way, because a human body, a human mind is connected to all the factors. For
Mhm.
example, if I talk about biopsychosocial model, now what does that mean to us? Biology, social factors, and our physiological needs. Everything is interconnected. It is never one way. So I feel nowadays the main problem is generalizing. People just say a quote for being an influencer. They'll just say a quote and they'll be like, yes, this is the thing. But how can we do that? Example I would like to give is any doctor or any surgeon, when they actually study, they actually work on their field. For an example, a kidney surgeon. Now the kidney surgeon will have every human body with same kidney, right? The same organ. But when it comes about mental health, every individual has their own experience, own perspective, own surrounding. So
Mhm.
generalizing means we are generalizing everything in their life, which we are not allowed to do, and we cannot do it. One problem which I can give a solution to myself does not mean the same solution will be for each and every individual. The
Yes.
solution might be different because of the factors according to their own life and experiences. So yeah, it is definitely, it does matter where we are, because if we are mentally not fine, we can't actually work on our career. on our own personal things where we get affected. And the third perspective, they does not understand. Maybe they do the racism, but they do not realize what they are actually doing it. But unintentionally, they end up doing something for some people where they feel so helpless in a country where they live alone and
Mm.
no other support they get. But as because they have their family here, their people here, they forget that the person who I'm actually harming or hurting does not have anybody. So yeah, I would end with saying empathy is something which or where people should work on themselves first, and then you can actually step out of a home and then try to do something with others, and with love and care we can actually do grow things in a betterment.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you said some things that were really important, that we've got our own experience and we need to do our inner work. And I'll add that when we do, us doing our inner work is helping the community because we are not in isolation. We interact with other people, we interact with our family, with our organizations, with our community, and they can feel when we have changed and they'll ask questions when we have changed.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think you brought out how complex the whole thing is, connected and complex. We're talking about biology, we're talking about emotions, we're talking about relationships, cultural um, situations, political situations, that all these things um, do result in a very complex makeup. So we cannot just generalize, but have to do and who knows our situation best than the person himself.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. It's not possible to heal without doing that inner work. No one else can do it. My question is to move further is it possible to heal from trauma when the structures don't change?
I would say no for several reasons. So first of all, something that Isha said that I really agreed with when it comes to generalizations, I was reminded how there's a book called Black Men, Trauma and Therapy, Revolutionizing Therapeutic Thought and Practice. And there's a chapter in particular by a Black psychologist called Dr. Ronald Dodsrow. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name, but in that chapter, he talks about how a lot of the Western psychologists misdiagnose their Black patients, especially Black men. And his focus is he looks at Black men who have suffered from community violence and how there's a misdiagnosis that rather than being diagnosed with PTSD, they're diagnosed with just behavioral issues because there's this lack of understanding of the Black man and the psyche, and especially one that has gone through certain traumas. So thinking about institutions, when institutions are the ones defining the language, defining the diagnosis, defining the treatment, it is very complex. And this goes back to what Dr. Elizabeth was emphasizing, taking your own initiative, doing your own research, because can Western medicine heal the African mind? That is quite a controversial statement, and I'm not saying that we have to just cancel out all Western medicine, but I personally have found in my own mental health issues and even physical health issues, going to holistic indigenous medicine and treatments where there is more of a physiological approach, where it's that understanding that if I'm experiencing something physically or mentally that relates to a deeper trauma spiritually a lot of the time, or just a trauma that I need to work through. So for example, I have autoimmune disease. I get alopecia and I get something called lichen planus on my skin, which Western medical system just treats it as it's a skin infection or it's related to the autoimmune. But actually, I did a lot of research into Chinese medicine that was talking about trauma that I had encountered as a child that I hadn't got over, and that was now manifesting as physical trauma. So, I think we do have to begin to decolonize our ways of understanding healthcare and solutions, and recognizing that institutions, especially Western institutions, they're there for a reason. They're working the way they're intended to. Like, this is a whole different conversation, but I think a lot of us are trying to change institutions, and we can change institutions just by us being there. But we also have to recognize that the function of a Western institution, the thinking behind an institution, was there to enforce coloniality. And are you going to seek the help from the institution that caused it? I don't personally think you can, but I'm interested to hear what you two have to say as well.
I think many things are possible. Everything is that. I think that our only limitations are our beliefs. And you asked the question initially, can you heal trauma when structures don't change? I will say this, I think everything changes. I don't think there's anything that stays the same. I also think that there are many different types of trauma. So I think for that question, I would say that it depends. Yeah, the answer would be it really depends on the type of trauma. But everything is always evolving. So I think that if we're able to come together, we can come up with solutions that can be helpful. I want to believe that. And in my heart of hearts, history is littered with examples where people did miraculous things. You think about Mother Teresa, you think about Gandhi, like they did great things when the structures looked horrible, you know? And so I think right now we have a great opportunity. When there is chaos, there's a lot of people are waiting, they're ready for change. And we have a great opportunity to do something that really works for us. We can be innovative and think of ways of healing that go, yes, we can go to therapy. Yes, we can go to psychiatrists, but we can also be innovative in the way that we come together and heal. In South Africa, they're doing really interesting things, like they're doing truth telling and reconciliation circles, and like people around the world are taking action. It may not get a lot of press, but they're doing things. And so we here, I guess I'm in the United States. I think that there's a lot of opportunity to really take our communities to a wonderful place where we actually start being honest, holding safe space, and allowing ourselves to release a lot of this heaviness that we've been carrying for a long time, so that we can allow something more welcoming to come in.
That sounds beautiful. Naomi, maybe you could say something a bit more to that, to the healing process and creativity.
So I really liked what Dr. Elizabeth said. And it is actually, I think the beauty of these conversations is we're obviously learning from each other. So I think you reminded me to, okay, you don't have to necessarily be so cynical, because I do agree that anything is possible. you have to first decide though that it is possible in order to see some type of possibility. If you
Yes.
just go through life thinking this is the only outcome, well, neuroscience highlights that you will see your bias confirmed. So that would prove a reminder for me. I think again, like, this is potentially a problem with when you're living in a Western world, and you even brought up media, and that was important because when you're just constantly seeing negativity, you really forget your ability to dream, and you really
Yes.
forget your ability to hope. So I definitely agree that, yeah, like you said, multiple truths exist. So I do think there are potentially some institutions that are going to be harder to change than others, but that doesn't mean that it's not impossible if we get into the mindset of thinking it's possible. And what you said about communities coming together, I'm a big believer in not waiting for the solution. You have to create the solution for yourself, but it also has to come from an intersectional community approach. Like, I have my perspective, other people have their perspectives, and if we brought all our perspectives together, that is what can create collective change that everybody can feel that they have a place in. Because I think as well, something that is wrong in the Western world is we're only seeing one type of leadership, and we're only told this is the right way. This is the right way to believe things about ourselves or believe things about the world, whether that's the media is only showing you one narrative, or you're only hearing narratives that are fear-based. So yeah, I think more hopeful people need to be coming together to create community spaces, and that is healing in itself.
Thank you.
And there are lots of different things that we can do. Like I think I've seen, I guess in my short time on this earth, I've seen people do wonderful things, like community members coming together in healing circles, prayer groups. I see people creating meetup groups. I've seen like yoga in the park, like bringing all the kids and the parents and all the community members together and doing something together, creating community gardens and truth telling truth telling poetry nights. Like I think really our beliefs are our limitation. And we can transcend this. We can absolutely do it. I think the Black community, the African American community, like we have this beautiful history of resilience, and we've been very innovative in the most adverse circumstances. And I was walking through a lot of my family lives in the DC area, and it's like the concrete jungle. And but even in places where there's all this cement, like I noticed, oh my gosh, this beautiful rose garden. So great things can come even when you're in the harshest places.
Yeah, I would
Great,
like to
great,
add,
great.
Naomi mentioned about, the misdiagnosis part, where people do get misdiagnosed, and it does lead to harm their mental health and even their physical health, because diagnosis is something which makes us know things about which we don't know about ourselves. And if somebody is diagnosing me, I will definitely go back, open my phone and search what is PTSD. If I'm not in the background, I would do all the research, YouTube videos, this, that, everything, because I would want to know what it is. And mostly in online social media and everywhere, people are exaggerating about the problems. This is the problem, that is the problem, but they don't give solutions. They don't say that you need to work on yourself, you need to love yourself first, and then you prioritize something else. No, they don't do it. What they do is they spread more negative things, where people think they self diagnose, because every diagnosis, every disorder, whatever they are involved with, whatever emotions, feelings are involved in diagnosis or disorders, are natural hormones in every human's body. But the disorder makes it difficult for people because the hormones are disbalanced. It is not balanced in their mind, and maybe some hormones are getting released way more than it usually should or it usually does. And that's where they face difficulty in their everyday life throughout their life. That is where disorder and a diagnosis gets combined and misjudged, because some people they just diagnose them, and we don't know if the client is actually coming back to us for the second session or not. And because of that, maybe the client feels insecure. They must feel that, okay, I have a problem on me, and the second time they don't show up. So I feel like diagnosing, thanks to Naomi for mentioning that thing. I think diagnosing somebody in their very first sessions is something which is very wrong, because therapists are not gods. They need to know them first. They need to talk to them, know every aspect of their life first, and then they can come up to a solution or a diagnosis. Diagnosis cannot be the first step. I think Elizabeth also mentioned something on the resilience, which
Mhm.
is a really a good thing, where people do know that the positive things, very simply, if we try to see things in a positive way, it will be positive for us. And if we try to see things in a negative way, it will be negative for us. But every human does not have that. And it makes it difficult, when people does not focus on their own selves. It makes it difficult
Mhm.
for them to grow in every aspect, in every area of their life. And it actually helps when they are aware of how much they know themselves, what emotions they are having, just the structure of thinking, why, what, how, when. This structure of thinking helps us a lot. But if we keep on sitting with the same paper for 10 hours, it is not going to help us. So it is us who can do it. A structure can help us, but only first thing is it's us. If we do not want it, it is never going to happen. I can go to people and talk to them, get advice, but if I keep on doing the same thing again and again, what I was doing, it's not going to help. So, structure needs consistency, definitely.
Mhm.
Consistency is very important in every area. Hard work and smart work, it's never one way.
Thank you. I particularly resonate with that, what you're saying, especially uh, diagnosis, you know, as you're explaining, diagnosis is not the first step of care. And we see that often a person goes to the psychiatrist, sits there for 5 minutes, and comes out with a prescription. Uh, so
I want to
these are.
oh,
Go
I want to
ahead.
say a couple things. So, I think that it's really important. Like people come to care for lots of different reasons. You would not.
Mm-hmm.
People have. Everyone's got a different reason of why they might come to see a therapist or a psychiatrist or
Mm-hmm.
a healer. I think that um, the what's really important is the connection that we have, the soul to soul. And I'm more holistic. I'm a holistic psychiatrist. So that soul to soul connection and really connecting with that person and really hearing what they have to say and allowing that knowledge, that wisdom from them to help to create some sort of a healing journey that really resonates with that person. I think, that our body is always talking to us. Like I think a lot of people see diagnosis and then really, it melds into, it becomes their identity. And I think that's detrimental. I think that the symptoms, the things that we see, what we look at as diagnosis, these are signals for us. Hey, I'm talking to you. Will you be still? Will you be paused and listen to what I have to say? As a physician, sometimes you see things and you're like, oh, I've seen this a lot of times. But everyone has a unique story. And so that's why I think it's really important to, like, when you come in contact with somebody, you sit before them and you recognize the soul, the spirit that is connecting with you first, and be open to what they have to tell you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, thank you so much for that. In our psychosocial approach, we say that the solution is within the client.
Yeah.
And basically, I can just help to facilitate.
That's the case with me as well. I do a lot of one-to-ones with women, but I believe I'm there just to guide women back to themselves. I don't believe in an external leader. I believe that we have the answers, but we've just lost our sense of intuition. We've lost our relationship with ourselves, And again, like thinking about like these structures like government or teachers or parents, we've literally have been programmed to outsource our power and outsource our decisions to other people. And of course, we do need at times an external perspective so that the ego doesn't just run riot and think, oh, because I think it, that means I'm 100% correct. But there definitely needs to be more self-trust. And that's something that I see a lot of women struggle with, because of also like the conditioning of women in general. But there's this lack of self-trust. They're always outsourcing to men, especially in certain cultures, like men make the decisions. And we have to recognize that in pre-colonial societies, especially in African indigenous societies, it were matriarchal societies. Like women were the ones who were in charge and who had power. And I think we need to remember that we carry that innate wisdom within us.
Yeah, definitely. I agree to all. It is very important for us to first see things with our perspective. And even Elizabeth just mentioned, like, people don't understand a basic difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. We don't go to a psychiatrist when we are having some minor problems, because psychiatrists are studying all the neuro transmitter matters, like everything about, they study all neuropsychology, everything, all the aspects, everything, all the medications which is gonna help them. So I feel like it's always has been a very big problem in mental health, where it's always a psychologist versus a psychiatrist, where it should be a psychologist and a psychiatrist. Because when psychologists cannot deal with a person or cannot actually help them heal naturally or with any other things, there are some factors where medication is important, where we have to face some chemical disbalance in our brain. I cannot put my hand inside a human's mind and actually fix the disbalance. So for that, medication is important, where psychiatrists are important too. Without them, we cannot prescribe anybody psychiatric pills. Psychiatrists are important too to do that part. But people in the very first place, they go to a psychiatrist and they ask, do me a favor, do me help with this thing. Now, a psychiatrist's job is to actually heal you with the help of medicines. So the first step should be a psychologist. And then, if needed, we can go to a psychiatrist if there are chemical disbalance in our brain, or
I
if
think
disorder is diagnosed.
sorry, I think that A psychiatrist is a medical doctor that has training. But I think what a psychiatrist is there's a lot of variation within within the field of psychiatry. And so we're trained in at least I am trained in therapy, and I'm trained in medications. And the beauty of going to a psychiatrist is if there are medical conditions that look psychiatric, like a thyroid disorder can look like anxiety, or anemia can look like depression. And sometimes people can be in menopause and think that, like, what, am I bipolar? It can look like those things. I think that there is room for all. There is room for all. I think the beautiful thing about psychologists is that they go deep into a particular area, whether it's dialectical behavioral therapy or acceptance and commitment therapy, or there's so many different types. Types of therapy. I think, but I think within all fields, there's a variation. And so I believe when you go to see someone, you need to look into yourself and trust your gut and ask questions. Ask them about their training. Ask them about what they feel comfortable doing, their history. And I am in the mindset that everything is connected. Even, we can talk about neurotransmitters, yes, but like our spirit, our emotions, our thoughts, everything plays a part. Your thoughts, stress levels can cause biochemical changes within your body. So I don't think it's so cut and dry. You can only go to this person for this or this. I think you need to develop your
Work
own
together.
intuition, educate yourself, and ask questions.
Yeah, just
I'm sorry, I
quickly.
would like to add one point, that is, the purpose of me saying this, that, a psychologist first and a psychiatrist first, because I have end up seeing mostly whoever went to a psychiatrist, they come back, as Sister mentioned, that they come back with a prescription. That is what I meant to say. Like, without getting medicines in the very first session or the second session, people do have the potential in their mind to heal.
Oh yeah,
We
yeah.
need to know this,
Exactly.
that they have the potential or not. If they are having really genuine chemical disbalance, then medicines are very much important for them. But rather than medicines, there are a lot of ways where we can heal, where we can help them. For just an example, 2 months, we can take 2 months time, right? Because we are shaping that human's whole life. With one diagnosis, with one session, we are actually shaping their life, because that person will trust us as a doctor blindly. They will we go to our doctor, whatever our doctor says us, we will take it fully. Then we do trust our doctors. We don't go to our doctors without trusting
I
them.
think it was important to hear that part, especially
Could I
discernment.
Yeah.
could I
they
just
are
add some? Sorry, because I know we're running out of
okay.
time.
Go
but,
ahead then.
I just wanted to highlight the role of art therapy and creative wellness as well, because when Dr. Elizabeth said there's room for all. I'm somebody who I've experienced so many different types. I've been to a psychologist. I've had psychiatric treatment in hospital, and actually the most effective treatment for me was art therapy, because I didn't have the words to express myself, but creatively a lot came out. So it may sound a bit radical, but I think we need a psychiatrist and a psychologist, but also we need creative wellness practitioners. We need faith-based leaders as well. We need that holistic approach where we're looking at so many different parts of the human and recognizing that everybody has a role to play. So I know we're running out of time, but I just really wanted to introduce creative wellness into the conversation, because it's been very heavily focused on the medical industry, so to speak, but creativity is something that is very, very powerful and has definitely helped me in my mental health journey.
Yeah, and I think like the focus today is trauma healing in community. So this is a collective. Is it possible? Is there a collective healing possible?
I believe it. I think there are a lot of smart people. Like I said, in South Africa, they had apartheid. They've gone through things that really difficult situations, and they're working together to come up with a process of, first of all, acknowledging, truth telling, holding a safe space so people's words and thoughts, are heard, and then coming together to reconcile. Um,
Mm.
so I
And
I have a lot of hope.
maybe it would be great to just touch on what exactly are the symptoms of collective trauma. What would we be talking about?
I think we see it in things like mass shootings, or the amount of violence
Mhm.
that we experience and how we relate to each other. We see it in the way that we communicate with each other. Whether are we fighting? Are we using fighting words? I think that and it those are the symptoms of, like, are we being harsh? Are we not
Mhm.
listening? Are we being very violent and not paying
Mhm.
attention to what the other person's truly trying to say? If we're not going in with um, wanting to really, everyone has different intentions, but
Right.
just wanting to be coercive rather than wanting to
Mhm.
heal. Um, I think we see it through the actions, the things that happen in our community, homicides and all types of.
Right.
Those are symptoms of collective trauma, and in how we structure how our families are structured.
Yeah.
That plays a big part too.
Yeah, a past life experience does matter a lot, and that is where we get the trauma from. So our surrounding childhood, everything matters a lot to actually develop our personality. And I think, the biggest opportunity for us is a community, because a community is made of people. And I feel without people in this world, it would be really difficult for anybody to live in, because
Mhm.
we have so much potentials in ourselves that sometimes we just forget it. Just seeing the birds, we invented aeroplanes.
Mhm.
We have aeroplanes, we have ships, we have boats, so many things. All the theories we study, we know is all human made. And
Oh,
community is really important so that we can have that support. We feel that, okay, we can count on somebody. We have something where we can go
that's
to, we can count on.
right.
And I
Right.
would, I would definitely
We have
feel
to
that,
start wrapping up. We have to start wrapping up.
okay,
So I would just say maybe each one of you can just give a short sentence um, as a closing. What is the most important thing this discussion?
I would
What
say
has it highlighted for you?
I would say everybody perspective needs to be taken into account, and that is what community building is. A lot of people think that to be in a community, everybody has to be thinking the same. And I believe you
Mhm.
just have to have the same aim. So everybody here, we came from different perspectives, but we have the same aim. And I would encourage everybody watching to do what is in your control. Right now, the world is burning. Things feel like things are out of control. But I would say that's an illusion. We can come together, we can create the solutions.
I
Thank you.
think, yeah, no, I think that was very beautiful. Like, we can have different we can come together and have the same intention of as far as like how we'd like to proceed. And I think what's really struck me is that for me, I just want people to remember that this is something that's entirely possible, and that we can look to the past to help us navigate. And we are not, I think, no, Naomi, you said something when you were talking earlier, that we're not alone, and that we do have guidance, and that what we need to do is quiet the noise, start listening, and be open to taking action that's in alignment with that wisdom.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I would just like to say that always remember your mind has the potential and you can do it. No matter how hard people try to drag you down, you have the potential to do it. Always think 10 steps ahead because people do try to pull us down, but never give up. Love yourself first and love your surrounding. Everything will be positive.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we've come to the end of this episode of Black Mental Health Matters. And we do believe that communities can heal. You know, they can heal even while being exposed to violence and exclusion and all of that, because we're all interconnected, not only amongst us as humans, we're also connected to the non-human, to nature, can have a positive effect on us. And with all this, we know that healing is possible, and healing is actually very much possible through different methods and tools. Storytelling, through talking to the right person, with starting with the inner work with oneself, really knowing who you are, what is happening to you. And yes, we take all this wisdom and knowledge, and I thank you so much. I learned so much from all of you today. And yes, let's keep these conversations going. Black mental health matters.
Yes.
It does.
Thank you so much.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.